Before declaring a winner in the draft phase, we must look at the macro perspective. What was the overarching win condition for each draft? In competitive play, drafting isn't just about securing high-tier power picks. It's about drafting a cohesive team comp that enables a specific playstyle. Looking at Syria's draft with Lady Zhen, Atta, and Lapu Lapu, their strategy is clear. This trio excels at mid-map control and river contestation, allowing them to dictate the tempo and force skirmishes on their own terms. Their kit is designed for hard engagement and creating space. On the flip side, Hong Kong responded with Angela, Diadia, and Neza. They also drafted around a mid-map presence, but with a completely different execution. Instead of relying on raw brute force initiation, Hong Kong's comp aims to sustain through neutral objectives, looking for the perfect window for Neza to dive the backline, while Angela and Diadia provide global utility and sustain. Ultimately, both teams entered the rift with the same primary objective, mid-priority and map control. However, the divergence lies in their execution. Syria relies on group deathballing and direct hard engage. Hong Kong relies on counter-engage, sustain, and peeling until their diver can lock onto the enemy carries. Therefore, as this match unfolds, the key metric won't be the overall kill score. The real question is, which team will successfully execute their macro strategy and secure mid-priority? Whoever commands that dead zone will likely snowball the game to victory. Right out of the gate, both teams opted for a standard 1-3-1 lane assignment. The goal of this deployment wasn't to force an early skirmish, but rather to secure the mid-axis. In competitive play, winning the mid-lane priority dictates the opening rotations and sets the tone for the first neutral objective. However, the difference in execution quickly became apparent. Hong Kong secured a faster wave clear, courtesy of Angela tethering with her jungler to fast push the wave. Conversely, Syria was forced onto their back foot, reacting to the wave under tower and immediately dropping rotation priority. Before the mid-wave was completely cleared, Diadia made a proactive rotation toward the farm lane. Combining pressure with Chano, they successfully invaded and secured the contestable small camp. As soon as Angela finished clearing mid, she rotated to mirror that pressure, creating a massive numbers advantage on the farm lane side of the map. Meanwhile, Syria's map presence remained split between mid and the opposite lane, forcing Aita to alter his jungle pathing. But the real tactical masterstroke came next. Angela and Diadia postured aggressively towards Syria's jungle lizard camp. Whether they intended to steal it or was simply posturing, the outcome was identical. Aita was forced to freeze his rotation and fall back to defend his camps. Hong Kong didn't need to secure a blue buff or a major camp steal to win this trade. They secured something far more valuable. They delayed the enemy jungler's tempo, scouted his pathing, and forced him into a reactive playstyle instead of letting him dictate the pace. On the other side of the map, Lady Zhen chose to rotate toward the clash lane to help Fata secure a neutral small camp, rather than responding to the numbers deficit in the farm lane or helping Aita expedite his jungle clear. This created a massive tempo disparity. While Hong Kong's jungler was blitzing through a hyper-efficient clear backed by Angela, Aita was stuck bouncing between defensive maneuvers and rerouting, all without achieving a full clear. This marked the first definitive economic and gold lead of the match. From an analytical standpoint, the opening minute wasn't decided by a first blood or a team fight. It was decided by superior tempo management and macro rotations. Hong Kong dictated the cadence of the match from the very first second. Following that opening minute, the game state solidified into a textbook scenario. Hong Kong became the tempo dictator, while Syria was relegated to damage control. From that point until the first major objective spawned, Syria failed to mount any real contested response to reclaim the mid-axis. Instead, Hong Kong methodically snowballed their early game leverage. Every instance of mid-priority was converted into vacuuming up extra map resources. Every piece of vision tracking Aita's pathing translated into river dominance for Hong Kong. Every time Syria attempted to rotate to a zone, Hong Kong was already set up and waiting. It is crucial to understand that what unfolded during the first 4 minutes wasn't a series of isolated blunders. It was the direct compounding consequence of a single failure, losing control of the mid-axis. Now, the question isn't how Hong Kong secured a gold lead leading up to the first objective. The pivotal question is, how did Hong Kong capitalize on this macro advantage the moment the first objective spawned at the 4-minute mark? Now that we've broken down the opening minute, it's the perfect time to circle back to the draft phase. What transpired on the Rift wasn't merely elite execution by Hong Kong. It was the direct byproduct of a draft perfectly tailored to enable their macro identity. Let's break down the individual matchups to see how this unfolded. This was the most critical matchup of the early game. The primary reason Hong Kong secured immediate mid-priority is that Angela possesses vastly superior early-game wave clear. She melted the first minion wave and hit the river, while Lady Zhen was still anchored to her tower, clearing remaining minions. This split-second window gave Angela the freedom to mirror Diadia, trigger the first numbers advantage, and strip Syria of their map opening options. Here, the disparity wasn't about individual hero power, but rather role optimization. Diadia's kit allowed her to immediately translate mid-priority into aggressive map pressure. We saw this manifest in her very first rotation, and that brilliant fake invade that completely derailed Atta's jungle pathing. Conversely, instead of facilitating map pressure for Syria, Lapu Lapu was relegated to a purely defensive, reactive role, bleeding out pressure while trying to cushion Hong Kong's rotations. Both of these junglers possess immense carry potential and map presence. However, because Hong Kong locked down the mid-axis, Neza was permitted to execute his baseline optimal jungle pathing. Atta, on the other hand, was continuously forced to alter his routes, resulting in broken clear speeds and a massively delayed power spike. In the farm lane, Chano was the immediate beneficiary of his team's macro blueprint. The moment Hong Kong captured mid-priority, they funneled resources and established a safety net around their marksmen from minute 1, handing Chano an uncontestable early game advantage. Meanwhile, the clash lane matchup, Byron versus Fateh, remained largely isolated during the opening sequences, and that makes perfect tactical sense. The definitive war for map control wasn't being fought in the side lanes, it was waged entirely along the mid-axis. The moment Hong Kong won that central chess match, the rest of the map fell like dominoes, forced to dance to the exact cadence Hong Kong dictated. At the 4-minute mark, the compounding value of Hong Kong's early game macro setup finally bore fruit. As the first tyrant spawned, Team Syria was in no position to contest. Bogged down by clearing shoved waves and trying to recoup their initial resource deficits, they had to concede the neutral objective to Hong Kong for free. However, the real analytical highlight wasn't the tyrant secure itself, it was the immediate sequence that followed. Remember that minute 1 rotation where Angela and Diadia disrupted Ata's pathing? That single play effectively desynced the camp respawn timers in Syria's jungle. The moment Hong Kong secured the tyrant, their own blue side camps had already respawned, allowing them to clear them immediately. Conversely, Syria's camps were still on cooldown. Without triggering a single team fight, Hong Kong secured another massive tempo advantage. Returning to clear the mid-axis, Hong Kong gained a pivotal piece of intelligence. Ata, Lady Zhen, and Lapu Lapu all showed on the minimap, caught under tower, absorbing the mid-wave. For Hong Kong, this was all the information they needed. With Ata tracked mid, his next movement pathing toward his own blue buff was entirely predictable. This is where the gap between guessing and proactive map reading becomes clear. Based on this vision, Nezar safely handed his red buff over to Chano to accelerate the marksman's scaling, while Biron anchored the river to secure vision on the enemy's red side jungle. Once Ata's positioning was locked down, Hong Kong executed a hard rotation toward the farm lane. This triggered another numbers mismatch, allowing Hong Kong to crash the wave and secure the first turret of the match, completely uncontested. This sequence perfectly illustrates how early mid-priority scales over time. Tempo morphs into vision, vision converts into resource denial, and resources ultimately yield map objectives. Securing the farm lane outer turret wasn't enough for Hong Kong. What stood out was their lightning-fast cross-map rotation from the farm lane straight to the clash lane. Their objective wasn't just to drop a single tower, it was to permanently shift the map pressure to the opposite side, suffocating Syria's playable space. At this juncture, Hong Kong wasn't picking random fights, they were strictly dictating the terms of engagement. Instead of fighting in open spaces, they choked Syria inside the jungle corridors, narrow choke points where their team comps kits thrived on superior vision and tighter spatial control. This explains a striking anomaly in the match. By the 6-minute mark, we hadn't witnessed any major, explosive team fights or desperate engage attempts from Syria. Hong Kong completely commandeered the cadence of the match. They decided when to choke out resources. They decided when to cross-map rotate. They decided when to force a fight. This is the textbook definition of map control. Hong Kong wasn't just leading in net worth. They were forcing Syria to play a game entirely dictated by Hong Kong's terms. Even against a choked-out map state, Syria still had windows to minimize their losses. However, individual and collective macro errors began to compound. The glaring issue was Syria's poor positioning and delayed reaction times. While Hong Kong moved as a cohesive unit to execute a dive, Syria's backline was caught lagging behind, stuck mid-absorbing waves. This massive desynchronization meant Fateh and Lapu Lapu were left to anchor a defensive line completely isolated, while Atta, Lady Zhen, and Di Renji were miles away from the pressure point. This man advantage allowed Hong Kong to collapse, drop the inner farm lane turret, and pick up clean kills on Fateh, followed by Lapu Lapu. The cleaner macro response was straightforward. Di Renji should have anchored mid-solo to catch the wave, while Atta and Lady Zhen hard-rotated immediately to reinforce the front line. Even if the turret fell, a coordinated numbers matchup would have forced Hong Kong to trade or pay a tax for the siege, rather than handing over an inner tower and 2 clean kills for nothing. What makes Hong Kong's gameplay elite is their unyielding reliance on information-driven decision-making. Every single rotation was calculated based on tracking enemy positions, which was perfectly put on display during the skirmish near the blue buff. Before the fight initiated, Lapu Lapu burned his ultimate blindly into the brush to scout for campers. Given Syria's complete lack of map vision, checking the brush was a logical precaution. However, burning a high cooldown ultimate just for scouting stripped him of his primary tool to either initiate a hard engage or turn a fight around. Hong Kong punished this instantly. Having already tracked Syria's general coordinates through the fog of war, they were fully set up for the encounter before it even kicked off. This highlights the fundamental difference between the two teams. Syria was burning resources to find information. Hong Kong already had the information and used it to execute. From that skirmish onward, the game was clinically over. Not because Hong Kong possessed superior mechanical outplay capability, but because they reached a threshold where every minor advantage systematically compounded into a macro avalanche. During every subsequent high-ground siege, Hong Kong executed a flawless blueprint. Chano focused purely on melting down the structures, while the rest of the squad functioned not to hunt the kills, but to create space for him. They engaged in short, calculated skirmishes, executing HP trades with Syria's defenders to draw their aggro and skill shots away from the marksman. This is the true essence of HP trading. You aren't overextending for the kill, you are trading your health pools to buy crucial time so your primary carry can secure the real macro milestone. Backed by the massive gold disparity engineered from minute 1. Every single health trade favored Hong Kong. Angela, boasting a near-completed item build, was outputting devastating poke damage that shattered Syria's frontliners whenever they tried to anchor a defense. Ultimately, this match wasn't decided in a climactic late-game teamfight. It was decided in the opening 60 seconds. Hong Kong demonstrated a masterclass in how securing mid-priority cascades into tempo, translates into resource aggression, scales into a gold lead, and culminates in absolute map choking. This match proves that victory doesn't always materialize from a first blood. Sometimes, it's won in the very first minion wave. Macro isn't just moving pieces across a map, it is a chain of micro decisions where every link paves the way for the next. If you appreciate this deep dive macro analysis, let me know in the comments which pro match we should break down next, and what specific rotation from Hong Kong impressed you the most.